So I'm delighted to be here today and presenting to you about how any language gets to become digital. As you heard, I'm Jeannette Stewart, and I have been working both on the client and the LSP side of the language industry for many years. In 2015, I founded Translation Commons, a nonprofit online volunteer platform, which is enabling language professionals, all of us, to come together and work for global impact projects, help our own community, and also share our knowledge. Specifically, our community helps thousands of students get started in our industry, mentoring them and helping them acquire the basic first-hand experience. And also, our academy has over 40 free tools and many courses and other free resources. So as an introduction, as we all know very well, language plays a crucial role in the formation and development of all concepts. Perhaps even more crucial is that through language, we're able to transfer knowledge. Each language contains the culture, the identity, the aspirations, and the characteristics of the people who speak it. It's alive and continuously evolving. It is through language that we communicate with the world, we define our identity, we express our history and culture, we learn, we also defend our human rights, and we participate in all aspects of society. Our future depends heavily on a digital ecosystem, and we are striving to bring connectivity to every corner of the world, every school, and every village. What would the world be like if we were all online? With so many international agencies and companies working towards 100% connectivity, we ask, in what language will the next billion people use the internet? In 2011, the UN declared that access to the internet is a basic human right. Current data indicates that at least 40% of the 7,000 languages used worldwide are in some level of endangerment. While reliable figures are very hard to come by, experts agree that indigenous languages are particularly vulnerable because many of them are not taught at school or used in the digital sphere. In response, the UN declared 2019 the International Year of Indigenous Languages and created awareness to the intersection of language rights and digital rights. In February 2020, more than 500 participants from over 50 countries, including government ministers, indigenous leaders, researchers, public and private partners, and other stakeholders and experts, adopted the Los Pinos Declaration at the end of a 2-day high-level event in Mexico City, which was organized by UNESCO and the Mexican government. In its strategic recommendations for the decade, the declaration emphasizes indigenous people's rights to freedom of expression, to an education in their mother tongue, and to participation in public life using their languages. The declaration highlights the importance of enabling the use of indigenous languages in all justice systems, the media, labor, and health programs. But it also points out to the need that digital technologies need to support and use the preservation of these languages. The digital divide refers to the gap between demographics and regions that have access to modern information and those that don't. But a new angle to the concept of the digital divide is when users have access, but no ability to benefit due to a language barrier. Unequal development of our digital domain is driving many languages to extinction. only 1,000 of the world's 7,000 languages are supported online. This is because most of these languages are not yet digitized. Take a look at the 198 million Indonesian users on the second table. Indonesia has over 800 languages, and that means that most of these users are using the internet in a dominant regional language and not their own. We take language access rights for granted, but 40% of the world's languages deemed as endangered do not have access and do not participate in any of these human rights. To communicate, learn, and work in one's own language is a human right. I was at the UNESCO conference Language Technology for All in Paris in 2019 to mark the end of the International Year of Indigenous Languages. I met many people from many communities all over the world. They all said the same thing to me. I just want to have the same digital experience that everyone else has, but in my own language. Now that I am the member of the ad hoc group for the creation of the Global Action Plan, which is open for consultation, by the way, we are planning to have a language technology framework so communities can learn how to have a digital footprint. During the first months of the COVID-19 pandemic, we realized that some Indigenous communities had no information in their language. We created a basic poster in 352 underrepresented languages, and for some of them, it was the only information on COVID-19 available. And you can see here on we have a language which doesn't even have a Unicode standard. Let me share with you a couple of communities that have worked very hard to give their languages a fighting chance in the digital world. The Cherokee Nation in North America. From creating their syllabary in 1821 and then in 1836, contracting out the creation of their fonts, they were always committed to the latest technology, from typewriter bowls to early mobile. And today they are fully digitized, from operating systems and desktop applications to texting, mobile apps like maps, social media, and everything else we do digitally in the main 20 languages. Another example is the Fulani language, spoken by more than 65 million people in a dialect continuum that stretches across 20 countries in the West and Central Africa. Until the early 1990s, they were using the Arabic script to write their language. The problems were numerous, as the script could not cater for all the sounds, and there was no standardization of orthography. Until two teenage brothers created a writing system. Their work became Bindi Pular and eventually Adlam. An article that was titled Alphabet That Will Save a People from Disappearing described how Adlam became widespread across many African countries. This had a huge impact on a couple of technologists who helped the brothers digitize it. The Adlam journey started at first as handwriting, then implemented as a font encoding with Arabic code points. Technical challenges and support by technology vendors are enabling rapid growth of this alphabet in a previous underserved language community implementation. The challenges are many, as the newly standardized script meets the technical infrastructure of the internet. Adlam holds great potential to improve literacy for millions as it is spreading rapidly in more than 20 countries. Unquestionably, the digitization of a language can increase literacy, provides access to vital information, generates income, and enlarges the community's outreach to its diaspora. So what is involved in the digitization of a language? Why haven't all languages been digitized? From the examples of the Adlam script and the Cherokee Nation's digitization efforts, you can clearly see it's not an easy task, and most importantly, it cannot be done by the community alone. The first step is to include the new writing system, script, and its characters in the Unicode standard, a process which can take years to complete. Then the community needs to create fonts that are according to the Unicode standard. The next step is to create a keyboard and make it available to the speakers of the language. After this, the community can start creating content, but to be digitized, they will need to approach many different tech companies and ask them to include their script in their application. And this is a very daunting process for many communities. The Language Digitization Initiative is a global impact program of Translation Commons, and through it, our vision is to help every language digitize and share equally in the benefits of a connected digital world, ensuring that no language is left behind. We want to make Indigenous languages readable and writable in on-screen format. It gives those languages a vital lifeline and enables often disadvantaged people the chance to experience the online world in their own language, which in turn plays a key role in preservation. We are creating a series of resources enabling communities to make the right decisions and embark on digitization. We created the document Zero to Digital, the first of many guidelines, helping communities navigate the basic elements of digitizing their languages. It is a step-by-step document as a technical guidelines on how to enable a language to be online. The document Zero to Digital helps these communities evaluate where they are and what they need. It suggests some approaches. It encourages the practical usage by texting once a keyboard is available. And it points them to the right tools, engages them, and connects them to the right organizations and people. Each language in the world has a completely different digital footprint. Even some of the top 100 languages are not fully represented in the entire language technology workflow shown here. It is a complex and multi-stakeholder journey for any language to be fully digitized. Without font, designs, and input methods, thousands of endangered languages cannot even start the journey. Without educational material, there will be very limited content. And without data sets, most languages will not have fully functional automation support in applications. Without properly trained linguists, knowledge will not be shared and cultural treasures will be lost. It will take a global and multidisciplinary effort to bring all these languages online. But we have solutions. The Zero to Digital, which is a series of guidelines, has another 3 being published in the next few weeks. And we also have some open source educational material that we're creating. We have a pilot of digitizing the Sunuwar language from Nepal, which is going to be used as documenting from a community's perspective what it is they need to do. And we are making our Unicode proposal for this. And we're also creating tutorials and materials for Train the Trainer and many more, all are going to be available for free to all the communities in the world, whoever wishes to download them and take advantage of them. How can we make a lasting impact as language professionals to the world? As you have seen from the previous slide, the only way to truly make a difference is by mobilizing a great number of diverse organizations and people with multiple skill sets. With the International Decade of Indigenous Languages approaching, we will be inviting more people and organizations, both nonprofits and corporations, to join us and help us in this huge task. The goal of the Language Digitization Initiative is to bring together language professionals, researchers, and language communities to support the digitization of endangered Indigenous and minority languages, and for us to build capacity and professional networks to help all languages have equal opportunities and equal digital footprint online. We need experts in different fields, and it is only when we combine our knowledge, passion, and fortitude we will accomplish our vision. Let's have our international agencies and governments create policies, our technologists create the technical support, and our academics the linguistic support. Let's have our educators and researchers work on teaching the next generations, and let's get the language professionals to embrace and include new linguists from thousands of languages. Today, Translation Commons has nearly 5,000 volunteers, and we hope a million tomorrow or in the next decade. If you feel passionate about enabling every person in the world to be online, help us and join us. Thank you.
Jeannette, thank you so much. That was very interesting. Can you hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the work that you guys are doing is amazing. Where do you get the money to do that? All that. I know you're a nonprofit, and that you're working with UNESCO, but I'm sure that you need a lot of money to do that, right?
Actually, you will be very surprised. So far, we have done everything with no funding whatsoever.
Oh my God.
It is all volunteer work. We have an advisory board, which is amazing. We have about 10, 15 people on our team that have been volunteering for the last 3 years, all experts who have been writing all these guidelines, just volunteering. However, having said that, we are reaching a point now that we are needing to create the tools. And that is not always as easy to do with volunteers, because we need to have the consistency. To write a guideline, you can write it in 2 to 3 months. But to create a database and a repository for the Indigenous communities, you need the consistency of a year's work of a team of people. So we will be needing to get funding very soon. We're looking at getting grants, and we are also looking to reach out both to the language industry, but also to many other Indigenous communities to see how they can help us create these databases, which will be very, very useful and will be in accordance with everything else we do in the decade. But it's a very good question. Thank you.
No, because I know, I mean, it takes a lot of work. I work in 2 associations as a volunteer, and I know what it takes to be a volunteer. Sometimes it's a second job. And sometimes, you need to have some, or pay someone to actually do the heavy work and the expert work. So I'm so happy. There's a comment here. Julio Garcia says it's a great challenge to get funding or volunteers for translating content for nonprofits. I can tell. That's what he's saying. So there is an association. I think it's an association here in Argentina. I'll be happy to connect them with you. They're working with indigenous languages, and I think they're doing an amazing work. We have 2 questions for you. Scott Johnson says, do you know any examples of these digitalization initiatives taking place in Latin America?
Very good question. I have a lot of contacts in Brazil, and all the contacts that I have are through academics. So I also know that there are some initiatives in Guatemala, and we have been working with professors in both these countries And one of the elements that we have as part of the digitization project is we have a community of practice that UNESCO asked us to create amongst linguistic researchers and academic professors. We meet every month, and every month we have a presentation of each other's work, and also of various communities that come and tell us. And we've had a couple of people give us some presentations from Brazil. So yes, we do have contacts. Do you have something in mind, a specific a community or a specific country?
Jackson, please type your answer. Or you can get in touch with Jeannette afterwards and maybe exchange information. Then Marek has another question. He says, wonderful presentation. And are you somehow focused on preserving specific languages in Indonesia?
Also a good question, because one of our advisors, although she's American, she speaks Indonesian, and she has been working with communities there in many of her, hats that she wears. So yes, we're not focusing on one country alone. We're actually extremely global. We will go anywhere anywhere that somebody asks for our help. So we will not instigate a project ourselves. We will be waiting for the community to ask us, can you help us digitize? Because we cannot assume that the community will want to be digitized. There are communities that don't. But most communities that we have been speaking with, the hardest thing is to make them aware that there is this initiative, that we're working hand in hand with UNESCO, and that we have the resources and the experts and also the contacts in the tech world that will enable them to get the right people to approach, to get Apple for the iPhone, to get Google for Maps and all these applications. And all of these people are part of our advisory board. So creating that awareness in the community is the number one, and we're hoping in January 2022, which marks the beginning of the decade of Indigenous languages for UNESCO, that there will be the language framework, that the language technology framework, that will give awareness to these communities to come to us.
That's awesome. There's a very interesting comment here. You may be aware of that, but I'm not sure. Melissa says that Veronica Nercesian is working with the Wichi community here in Argentina. Her team has published a digital dictionary this year. Maybe you can also connect with her after the presentation.
Yes. It'd be great. And to create a digital dictionary, it is very difficult. It takes not only very specialized researchers, they have to have been trained to deal with communities, like in sociology and anthropology, but also they have to have those linguistic skills to be able to decipher what needs to go there. And they have to have terminology knowledge to understand how to create the proper concepts and how to document them in term basis. So yeah, it's very difficult what Veronica is doing. And I also know Cecilia Piaggio.
Yeah, that's what Cecilia, that's the association that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so we're up with the time. There's a question left, but Scott, you can join Jeannette in the networking session and talk about this and exchange information if you have any that may be useful for Jeannette. So thank you so much for all the great work you're doing. This is a blueprint that you're leaving for humanity in the future, so it's very much appreciated. Thank you for being here at CLINT as well. Have a great rest of the day.